G'day everyone and welcome again to the chat. We are currently in the midst of another lockdown here in Melbourne and I have to be inside my house at 9 o'clock every night, but racing's still going ahead all over Australia. And I've got probably one of the biggest guests I've had on my podcast since it started late last year. And joining me this morning is Adrian Bott from Gai Waterhouse and Adrian Bott Racing. G'day Adrian, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good morning, Ben. Thanks very much for having us on the show.
Yeah, no worries at all. We're a bit of a slow start on Monday, but it's good to get going and finally speak to you. It's been a while. I'm trying to get hold of you, mate.
Yeah, well, there's no sort of escaping at the moment with the lockdown, so plenty of time to get a hold of us.
And just on the lockdowns, how are you coping up there? You've obviously got a young family in Sydney.
Yeah, look, obviously the industry is in a very fortunate place. We're still able to go to work and sort of relatively sort of go about our working days as normal. The horses' campaigns haven't really been interrupted. The racing calendar is still on, just a few movements from the different tracks. But in that regard, we're very fortunate in comparison to a few other industries. What's a typical day like for you, Adrian, considering just how big the stable is and you co-train with Gai? Yeah, typical day. So we kick off at 3 a.m. We sort of aim to have all our first horses out on the track at 4 a.m. So that first hour is just spent sort of going through, I guess, with the volume of horses we have, going through with the different staff, managers, foremen that they're in charge of their division of horses. Look, on that scale, there's always something that may have left feed, may have a temperature. A certain staff member may have called in sick, so you're sort of doing a few adjustments throughout the morning in terms of your lots. Sort of backing off those horses that might be sort of starting to spike a temperature or something may be coming on, or that have left a bit of feed and may still be feeling a hard gallop from earlier in the week or a race. So you sort of spend that time in the morning just sort of rejigging what the morning will look like, and look, that's got to be pretty. Currently, how we're operating, it's sort of got to be pretty tight and pretty efficient because we're trying to. I guess sort of staffing is always an issue over this sort of period, and sort of trying to get through the things as efficiently and as possible. So you sort of make all those changes in the morning. Track work through about 8:30. It takes us the majority, that entire time to work through all the horses. We get through all of those back in the office, get through your acceptances, your nominations, and that's sort of usually done by 11 o'clock. And at that time of morning, touching base with a few owners, how their horses may have worked in the morning, what to expect for the weekend. And we're back in the stables in the afternoon doing the afternoon exercise from 12 to 2:30. And then sort of in the afternoon, I'm just sort of finalising the work list for the following day. So that sort of takes you right up to about sort of 6 o'clock at night. So I'd say it's a full-on day for us, but we enjoy it.
In the industry up there in New South Wales at the moment, you guys are all definitely helping each other out. I've seen, like, if they can't have certain stable workers come to the races, the stables help each other out with strapping and stuff like that. And I reckon it just shows what kind of what kind of industry the industry is, and everyone supports each other when they can.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Everyone's, I guess we're in a position where we are able to help, help others out. So, we're able to do so, because it could easily be, the reverse sort of situation. Even throughout the sort of carnival, we travelled with a few horses interstate, particularly up to Queensland, sort of over the last sort of 6 months and last 12 months, and we weren't able to take sort of staff to those areas, but stables up there were able to sort of take it on, and we were able to sort of fortunately able to sort of continue and campaign our horses that way. So it's sort of only fair that we can return the favour to certain people, and as you said, it's sort of just the industry that the type of people that are in this industry.
And just on carnivals, we've got the spring carnival sort of starting to ramp up slowly in Sydney and down here in Melbourne. Are there any particular horses that we should be looking out for, Adrian, from the stable?
Yeah, Friday's going to be an interesting day for us. We've got a few trialling, a few of those sort of carnival prospects coming back. A horse like Converge, he won the JJ Atkins for us in the winter there. He could potentially have an exciting preparation. Always sort of interesting to see how they develop from that 2-year-old career into their 3-year-old season. If he can, take that level of improvement that we've seen from him throughout his career, there's some nice targets for him. A horse like Silent Impact, he was, he's sort of put two together there at the end of the winter, but he's an exciting horse with his breed and, the scope to improve over a bit further. So he's one that hopefully we can maybe see later in the carnival. And we've made a couple of interesting European purchases to come down this year. Just sort of, the last few years we've sort of focused quite a lot or quite heavily on, sort of the yearling purchases and younger stock coming into the stable, just sort of felt we probably need a bit more of a balance going forward, and sort of getting some of the tried horses into the stable that can sort of have us, participating in a lot of these staying races and some of these sort of weight for age events where we may have just been a little bit, sort of didn't quite have the runners or the representation there that we wanted. Like we're in such a fantastic spot within the industry at the moment in terms of sort of how healthy it is in terms of the prize money and the appetite for ownership, and there's some fantastic races there to be competing in, but obviously the sort of landscape to be competing in those sort of types of races has changed over the years, and it sort of has revolved heavily around the European imports. So we've sort of had to just sort of catch up a little bit in that regard over the last 12 months, and we'll continue to do so going forward. We've got some, I think we've got one of the best, form analysis in the business to help us. So hopefully that's a bit of a leg up for us going forward.
And the yearling sales have been absolutely astronomical this year with the results, Adrian, and even last year as well. I often see you and Gai sort of separately, you're doing your own things at the sales. How does that work? Do you guys if it's a big sales like the Gold Coast, do you go half each of the catalogue and see what you like and then sort of come together and work with Bruce Slade to decide what you're going to buy?
Yeah, I guess the strength of the yearling sales results, that's, I think an indication again of, how well and healthy the industry is at the moment, the reflection on the prize money that's on offer. So yeah, that's all reflected in the stud fees and then the prices that people are willing to pay for yearlings at sales. But in terms of the inspections, sort of there's a lot of ground to cover. For the first looks, we sort of, Gai and I like to do it separately. Gai likes to see them a fair bit earlier on the farms, and then see them again while at the yearling sales, and then I'll just try and get through. And I guess it's, you really don't want to have any distractions when you're looking at those horses, and you want to sort of have your first instinct, your first gut feel, and you don't want to be influenced too much by anyone that you're necessarily looking with at first. So we'll go around separately. We'll sort of shortlist a lot ourselves, colour few ourselves, and then we sort of cross-reference, and from there, that's when we sort of go around together and really sort of hone in on what we like and what we can live with, what we can where we might have missed something that first time round, and you certainly do that, and sometimes there's compromises that either of us make, but at the end of the day, sort of learned a lot from her. So I know. I think I know what she's looking for and what she's going to like. So a lot of the times we do end up on the same page.
And how many typically would you have on the books in the stables? And I ask that because obviously you're based predominantly in Sydney, but you do have a small stable down here in Melbourne, ably run, I believe, by Mr. Bo Dunn. Is that right?
Yeah, no, Bo and his fiancée Alva, they're a fantastic part of the team down in Melbourne. Look, it's only a smaller stable in regards to what we've got up here. We sort of probably on average have about 15 horses down there, but it's just as important part of the business as any. We can move horses in and out and sort of place them really well down there when we need to, and obviously during the carnival, it's an advantage being able to have a base there where you've got all the sort of staff and infrastructure and systems in place there, so we can sort of move horses back and forth throughout their campaigns as we feel necessary, wherever we feel they're going to be best placed. So obviously that's an advantage to us. So on average 15 down there, we probably keep about 120 in work in Sydney. So we sort of probably use that as the main centre to sort of get the horses up to a certain level, and then we can sort of move them around where we need to from there, where their program is going to be best suited. So I guess when you're sort of operating on those numbers in terms of your stable size, we've probably got close to 200 horses on the books.
And every person I talk to in racing, they've got an important or valuable thing they've learnt from Gai, or a funny experience. I know Bruce Slade told me when he met Gai when he was bid spotting at Karaka. What's the funny experience you have with Gai? Obviously, you're working with her every day. Yeah,
look, there's certainly plenty of memorable and funny experiences. She certainly leaves an impression on everyone. Look, I guess that I hold a different relationship with Gai there, and certainly sort of being my mentor through all the years, and she's certainly very very tough and very very strict, which is sort of I think what you need, and certainly I know her father was always sort of very very tough on her, so she's certainly not going to make it any easier on anyone. But things just learned so much. Things like attention to detail just within the business, and you sort of really get a gauge on what it takes to in order to be successful. And she's relentless, as I said. When she's fanatical about when she sort of wants something done, she'll follow it through until it's done. She'll drive you absolutely mad and bonkers until it is. But she does get what she wants at the end of the day, and it's for good reason. And you look back and you understand why she's successful, because she knows what she wants, how to get it done, and she just ensures it's carried out every step of the way, which is sort of so important, and what needs to happen in this business and in this industry. And I just sort of think it's remarkable just how she's still got that after so many years. It can be, it's not easy, can be sort of certainly tiring and draining at times, but for the fact that she's sort of been at the top of her game for so long, it's certainly and still got that work ethic. That's certainly something to look up to and strive towards.
Could you tell me a bit about the relationship between Gai's family and your family, because it's quite strong, isn't it?
Look, Dad's my family sort of had horses in training with Gai prior to me working here. They've always sort of been, I guess, sort of always done business previously, and yourself, everyone within the industry, they, a lot of people everyone knows each other very well. It's it is a small industry in that regard. So they've done plenty of business over the years. My family sort of bred and raced and sold horses for a number of years. So they've known each other on probably more so a professional level than anything over the years. And I think that's sort of the way it's sort of remained in recent years. But Gai's welcomed us into the family. She's she's very accommodating in that sense, and she's been a huge support for me, obviously.
Tell me about your experience as a child growing up on the famous Sedgenho stud.
It's an amazing property. It really is sort of one of the best studs there in the Hunter Valley. You've only got to sort of look back over the years of the horses that have come off that property and raced so successfully, and that continues to do so year in, year out. Even most recent Golden Slipper winner Farnham, he came off that farm. So it really is just a magical place in that regard. So very, very fortunate to have that opportunity sort of growing up there. And whilst you may not even sort of realise it at the time, but you just take in so much when you're young, and sort of being surrounded by that level of professionalism, the way that things are done. And even at that time, I didn't realise I was going to be necessarily going into the industry or going to be a trainer. There's just so many things that you take on just as sort of second nature and take for granted at the time. That's been such a probably such an advantage and a leg up to help me get to where I am today.
And you mentioned younger. There's a bit of a criticism sometimes of the racing industry not doing enough to bring in a younger audience. What do you feel needs to be done to make it more attractive to younger people outside of the big carnivals?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if I necessarily have the answer to that, but I think it's important that everyone is definitely aware of that. And people are certainly trying to make some conscious changes there to appeal to a younger younger audience. I guess that's sort of why a number of these sort of new races have been introduced to try and attract a new crowd to racing. Racing like a race like the Everest. That's the number one goal that was behind Peter Volandi's sort of mind when he created the concept. So if you look at the attendance on the day, well, it's obviously grabbed the attention of that particular crowd. So that's been a advantage in that sense. Obviously I think sort of embracing technology and everything wherever we can, sort of making it as appealing. I think we're in a better position now that access to information and everything is certainly a lot more than what it used to be, sort of 20 years ago. So I don't think I necessarily have the answer, but I think we are aware of it. I think there are certainly some changes being made towards it, and I feel the industry is certainly in as good a place as any other racing jurisdiction in the world.
You mentioned Farnham winning the Slipper. Is that one of your more memorable moments since coming on board with Gai, or is there something else or a particular horse that it always just sticks in your mind? You always find yourself going back and reminiscing about it.
Yeah, look, I think he sort of came on. Yeah, I'd say it had to be Farnham. when you sort of look at the history of that race and what it means to be winning such a prestigious and stallion sort of making race, like that was sort of probably obviously the highlight, the pinnacle. But there's been plenty of other things or moments that are certainly rated up there, like sort of Pinot winning our first classic down in Melbourne. Global Glamour was probably the first sort of Group 1 horse that we had in partnership, and the fact that then she was able to go down, a week later and back up and do a Group 1 double, she was always pretty special. Envisage training, Group 1 for, horse for the family that they bred themselves, like there's, certainly plenty of emotion, involved with that. But yes, certainly, Farnham's probably been one of those, certainly probably one of the highlights.
And part of your experience before you were working consistently with Gai was you got to go to the US and you got to work with the superstar trainer in Wesley Ward. What was that like going over to the US and being an Aussie over there and in the racing industry? Because Americans, they love us Aussies, don't they?
I love America. It's a great place over there. Obviously, the racing's very different. Obviously, sort of the dirt that they race on, the style of racing they have. It's different to down here, but it's unique and sort of enjoy it for what it is there. Wesley's sort of got himself he's amazing at what he does in sort of taking those young horses and preparing them and taking them over to Royal Ascot, obviously. So his sort of real niche is preparing these 2-year-olds and producing them. He's very dominant when he goes over, but these young horses to show so much speed. And obviously there's sort of, parts of that sort of really wanted to sort of adapt and sort of bring over here and sort of try and see what we can learn from someone like him. And he's just the most unique person and obviously sort of the best at what he does in that regard. It's sort of hard to explain, just probably a person you just sort of got to observe. He's a bit of a genius at what he does. He's sort of how he sort of sees the horses and sort of got a feel for what he does. But he's very interesting character, incredible person, and lovely man.
And we think sales like the Magic Millions or English Easter is pretty big. Over in America, they have the Keeneland sale. It goes for like a whole week. I've never been, but it looks like an amazing sale just to be there. It's huge.
Yeah, it's I was fortunate enough to do the Saratoga sales up there. That's unique. It's a gorgeous sale. Saratoga is probably one of my favourite parts of the world up there. It's really, really beautiful place. The racing on when it's up there, and then the 2-day sale at night. Really, really classy event. So very fortunate to be able to do that a couple of times. Keeneland certainly looks a bit more grueling. Not as glamorous getting around the barns there for a couple of weeks long. I find the Magic Millions an absolutely grueling event, and that's only 1,000 horses, which is huge on our standard. But Keeneland's multiples of that. So it'd certainly be a tough sale to do over there, that's for sure. Maybe wouldn't mind getting over there one year, sort of trying that. Unfortunately, all those sorts of things just seem so far away at present. But one year hopefully we'll be back.
Just to finish up, Adrian, what is it that Adrian Bott likes to do away from racing in his spare time?
Look, I'm probably pretty boring in that regard. Unfortunately, look, we sort of live and breathe the industry that we're in. We're in a bit of a bubble, and unfortunately, it does sort of probably consume a fair bit of sort of what we do in our lives. So as I said, I outlined the sort of daily schedule, sort of what our day looks like. That's sort of 7 days a week sort of thing. So like it's sort of and on Sundays usually we sort of have our open day. We have owners in, and we sort of try and want that involvement. So there's never a great deal of spare time outside of racing, unfortunately. But just sort of probably with sort of what I threw myself into in sort of in regards to sort of the partnership and the business and the operation here, like there's probably no real time to sit back and sort of enjoy too much of that time. But obviously I think it's sort of really important to be able to have that balance at times, just to be able to sort of make sure that you're really focused on what you're doing with the business and the work and the decisions, and being able to just have a bit of time to get away from the racing and take the pressure off your mind or think a bit clearly. So I'm making a real conscious effort at the moment to make sure sort of balance it out with some form of sort of exercise, sport. I'm playing tennis. It's sort of probably a bit hard to dedicate too much time to getting out and playing around a golf. But just sort of a few things like that. I'd like to, try and be a bit better of. That's sort of my goal over the next sort of 12 months going forward, just to try and pick something up like that. That's sort of, so that racing's not 24/7.
Thanks very much for joining me this morning, Adrian. Hopefully we'll see you at the races or at the sales soon. And don't worry, I'll change my hat. I'll have my big hat on. I remember when I first met you, that was the first thing you said to me. You love my big hats.
I must say that Gai Waterhouse hat looks pretty good on you at the moment.
Thanks, Adrian.
Appreciate it, man.